What is Star Trek? Is it TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, or Enterprise? In all reality, Star Trek primarily took place in the 24th century. TNG, DS9, and VGR were part of what I like to call the 24th century saga, and that's where pretty much all of Star Trek takes place. TOS was 3 seasons and 6 movies. Enterprise was 4 seasons, and yeah. Whereas the 24th century was 7 seasons for TNG, 7 seasons for Deep Space Nine, and 7 seasons for Voyager, along with 4 really crappy TNG movies. The 24th century saga showed us the width and breadth of the Milky Way galaxy. We saw the Alpha Quadrant, we saw the Beta Quadrant, the Gamma Quadrant, and most importantly, the Delta Quadrant. But in 2001, the 24th century saga would come to a most ignominious close with the release of Star Trek Nemesis, a movie so terrible that it killed the 24th century saga in one swift stroke. After that, well, the USS Trek kind of sputtered on, and at the end of Star Trek Enterprise Season 4, Trek, as we knew it, was dead. That warp core had breached and destroyed it for all time. But immediately post-Nemesis, there were some TNG-era things that tried to carry on the 24th century saga, and today we're going to be taking a look at Star Trek Elite Force 2, a game that tries and succeeds at carrying on the saga of the future. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. The first installment is usually always the best installment of any franchise. It has the most creative freedom. It has the most ingenuity. The developers, writers, directors, whatever, are trying to create something new, something that hasn't ever been done before. They're pulling their blood, sweat, and tears into something. The sequel is usually never really as good, Aliens notwithstanding. The sequel has to be safer. The sequel has to be simpler to appeal to a wider audience. Well, thankfully, Elite Force 2 does not suffer from any of those things and is actually more complex and more creative in many aspects than Elite Force 1. So with that, let's jump right in and take a look at it. Star Trek Elite Force 2 was developed by Ritual Entertainment and released in June of 2003 for only the PC, as was right and proper back around this time. The PC was still king, and thus games such as this either got only a PC release or it was developed for the PC first and only then ported to a console, rather than the other way around these days. This usually meant that the games were more complex in terms of level design and gameplay complexity. This is shown in this game by the fact that in addition to excellent shooting, you also have a few mini-games and you have a special item that you use to complete puzzles. Elite Force 1 was fun, but it was just way too easy. You had plenty of health, you had plenty of ammo, your Elite Force buddies were there, and really, the difficulty in Elite Force 1 can be summed up by Halo 1's easy difficulty quote. Your enemies cower before your unstoppable onslaught, yet final victory will leave you wanting more. Elite Force 2 fixes this. Yeah, the AI is not that much better, but their shots do way more damage and the health and energy stations are fewer and further between. The enemies now, for the most part, can shoot back. There are more of them, and most importantly, if a melee enemy closes with you, he can rip you to shreds in short order. your other hazard marines are often ordered to stay and guard the base as they should.
Why do you always go off alone? The leaders should never take point.
Thanks. See you soon.
Time for weapon reviews. And yeah, that phase plasma pulse rifle in the 40 watt range, it's still on order. Don't even get me started on the price of those goddamn batteries. You start the game with the Dustbuster Phaser, and it is pretty much the best weapon in the game, and you will be using it on up to the very last level. It will one-shot most weak enemies, has infinite ammo, and recharges fairly fast. No other weapon in your arsenal will come close to its utility. This game really gets the concept of the phaser right. The Dustbuster was never meant to be some sort of pistol analog. It was supposed to be some sort of super futuristic hand weapon, meaning it could be used to stun one person or wipe out one half of one city block. You have two flavors of compression rifle, the good one and the crappy one. The good one shows up early game and is quite useful. Then it disappears and you have the enhanced, yeah right, compression rifle. It does paltry damage and it will take a few hits to take down even the weakest enemy. It's like Gecko 45's many times great half-Ferengi grandson made up a rifle he thought was cool and somehow sold it to the Federation. It is by far the worst weapon in the game, and sadly, it's still rather versatile and is one of your few rapid-fire long-range weapons, and is at times the only good choice. You then have a double-barreled shotgun.
The new Federation assault rifle.
No, Corban, that's not an assault rifle. That's a double-barreled shotgun. To be an assault rifle, it has to be chambered in an intermediate caliber, and it should be able to toggle from semi-automatic to full automatic.
The new Federation assault rifle.
Alright, screw you, Corban. I guess he is Gecko 45's many times great half-Klingon grandson that sold the Federation an enhanced compression rifle and a assault rifle. Yes, this is the Federation's new double-barrel shotgun, and it works as you would expect a super shotgun to work. It's devastating at close ranges, and it has an underslung grenade launcher. Why Corban, a goddamn Klingon warrior, makes such a massive mistake is anyone's guess. Perhaps the Klingon word for double-barrel shotgun is assault weapon or something like that, and it just translates weird to English. Then you have the grenade launcher, and it's decent, but when you get the quantum torpedo launcher, you will not use it much since it has a really shallow firing arc. The quantum torpedo launcher is equal parts awesome and hilarious. It's just a standard video game rocket and even has a guided secondary fire, but like with the photon torpedo launcher in the previous game, it makes no sense at all. A photon torpedo is an antimatter weapon, and the quantum torpedo is a 0-point energy science breaky big boom. These torps should make the Davy Crockett launcher look like a bloody pop gun and should be something used on armies and not, well, not up close like this. They should be powerful enough to fry half a city per shot. But then again, if they did that, well, the game wouldn't be as cool. In one episode of Deep Space Nine, a Vulcan serial killer had a special prototype rifle that had an inbuilt transporter that could literally transport a bullet into someone. As you can expect, this would make the feds too powerful, and thus it was never seen or heard from again. Which explains why the Federation long-range rifle is worse than the long-range rifles we have today. It's a single shot, and it's good for taking on enemies at long range, but sometimes you really need 2 shots in quick succession, and if you do not time it just right, you will be killed. So keep it one shot in mind when engaging certain enemies. The iMod makes a return from the previous game and looks way more kick-ass here than it did in the previous game. Looks like old 7 and 9 learned style when it came to guns as well as clothing. In the main campaign, you can still use it provided you nick it from a crewmate. Hey, she should have turned it in to the quartermaster. I am confiscating it because it's non-regulation equipment. You then have the Force Lightning Gun that works well on bug enemies. You then have the old Painless that works quite well against bosses and groups of enemies.
and you get it in the most awesome of ways. Then you have some sort of weird Romulan radiation gun thing that, to me, seemed to do absolutely no damage when I tried using it, and as such, it's kinda useless. You then have 2 level-restricted weapons, the Batleth, that you use to seek out new life and new civilizations to boldly carve into chili meat what no one has carved before. It works like a melee weapon and is fun to use when it is available. Then, for one mission, you get a Romulan Disruptor. It works pretty damn good. It has a recharging power source and is really fun to use during the level it appears in. The game also has numerous really fun boss fights. They're built up, they're interesting, and the bosses themselves are a legitimate threat. But Ritual knew what they were doing and thus did not make them a slog, and they are never so difficult that you feel like they are a chore to defeat. And you do not just face the same big guy over and over again, and each legitimate boss fight is a bit different from one another. The gameplay is way more than just shooty-shooty. There are numerous interlude segments where you collect information or talk to your crewmates, and yes, it really immerses you into the world of the 24th century. Unlike in the first game, you actually have your own personal tricorder. This thing allows you to hack certain items, and it gives you different vision modes, for some reason.
And unlike in modern games, it does not beat you over the bloody head with what vision mode to use when you need to use it. When you have to use, say, trace gas mode, you don't have somebody chime in saying, use trace gas mode to see the blah blah blahs. Instead, it's just, well, here's the thing going off. Well, you better figure out what to use, otherwise you're gonna die. Contrast this to Dead Space. Dead Space has one simple rule. Cut off their limbs, which they constantly drive into your bloody head all the time. I got it the first time I read it on the wall.
Each vision mode that you have is used in different parts of the game to solve puzzles and find secrets. That being said, the game features numerous oh shit moments. Not oh crap moments, this is one step beyond that. There are moments in the game where you have to quickly solve a puzzle or do something, and the game does not tell you what you have to do at all. And trust me, when these oh shit moments rear their ugly little heads, you will be so happy that you have the F5 key. So very happy, because in this game, you will need to give heed to the Lord of the Quick Save. In addition to vision modes and oh shit moments, you have more traditional puzzles. And yes, some of these puzzles are connected to the oh shit moments. You have 2 types of puzzles, one where you match up these waves, and a basic pipe puzzle. And as you go through the game, they steadily get harder and harder. Since they are randomized, sometimes they are harder and sometimes they are easier. Most of the time, they will not be timed, but oh shit, when they are, it comes as a shock. There is part of the game where the plasma regulator is broken on the shuttle. Chell, returning from the previous game, tells you to have to vent some plasma. Piece of cake, right? Should just be one button, right?
Wrong!
You have to do a wave puzzle, and it's timed. When I first played the game, I got it in 1! For the review, the game must have known that I was recording, because it took 10 bloody tries to get it right. No wonder Starfleet ships blow up at the drop of the hat. I gotta do this just to vent some goddamn plasma. No wonder ejecting the core takes an act of the Federation Congress. Character interaction is also rather complex, as you actually get some dialogue options. And there's one part of the game where you have to verbally spar with someone. Music for the game is way better than Elite Force 1's, and most Star Trek games in general. The combat music is actually pulse-pounding. Have a listen. The graphics for the game have aged gracefully. They look less blocky than Elite Force 1's. The mouth movements still have a little to be desired though. But overall, the people actually look like people and not action figures. The levels still look good in terms of textures, and they are laid out quite well and have numerous Half-Life styled hazards that you must avoid. The weapons also look damn good, and the enemies also still look pretty good as well. overall, for just coming out 3 years after Elite Force 1, the game is head and shoulders above the previous game's graphics. Getting this game to work on a modern PC is actually quite easy. All you gotta do is change the executable to Quake 3. That's it. But remember, do not do what I did and change the EXE to Quake 3 EXE. Just change it to Quake 3. When you do that, you will have 60 FPS all throughout. As you guys know, I love me some menus, and the menu in EF2 is more basic than EF1, but still has some exceptional details, such as the ship in the background will change and will be dependent upon where you are in the game. EF2 has numerous secrets to find. You can find ammo and health, but you can also find little Excelsior models.
And finding those little bastards is an exercise in frustration at times.
The more Excelsiors you find, the more secret levels you can unlock. And when I say it's an exercise in frustration, I mean it. Because I looked all over the place and I found just enough to unlock one level. Unlike in Elite Force 1, the cool holodeck levels must be earned, not simply given away. The holodeck interludes in the campaign only have you fighting in the Enterprise cargo bay to test your new weapons. All the really cool levels have to be unlocked with ships. There is a grand total of 1 bloody turret section in the game, and it does not get boring. Oh no, does it not get boring at all. You have to have your head on a swivel at all times, and you actually have to take care to not destroy the enemy. This is a turret section done right. Throughout the game, you will have a couple of escort missions in timed segments. You will see how much time or how much health an escortee has in the left-hand corner of the screen. Usually you will have plenty of time and the escortee plenty of health, and they really go a long way towards making the game that much more fun. The game even has a couple of dark areas, and thankfully you have NVGs, unlike in Star Trek Generations, where all they had were some X-Files styled flashlights. The NVGs work well enough, but hilariously, in the 21st century we already have full-color NVGs. I guess the feds just wanted to save a Fed cred when it comes to military technology. The voice acting is very inconsistent, sadly. The main characters still sound good, if a bit stilted, but like with Oblivion, all the side characters are voiced by like 3 voice actors, and the VA director really had trouble getting people to emote! Just listen to this conversation.
Can we at least study someone from this century?
Or this planet?
Remember, ex astris scientia, from the stars' knowledge.
The voice acting for the side characters, along with literally everyone else, picks up later in the game.
Like with the voice acting, the story is also pretty inconsistent.
The hook mission for the game is, in a word, amazing. You start up on the Borg Sphere, seen in the series finale of Star Trek Voyager. Immediately, you see how much improved the combat is, how much better the graphics are, and how the game loves to throw oh shit moments at you. So, you play the latest Elite Force game. You have your trusty iMod. Oh shit! The Borg have set up a dampening field and now you have to rely on the Dustbuster and the compression rifle. You only have limited shots, or possibly none if you foolishly use them early on. Now, you have to be on the hunt for distribution nodes. Eventually, you shut down the dampening field and you can shoot with impunity. Your mission here is to shut down 3 dampening field generators, and unlike with other games, you don't just shoot them, rather you solve the wave puzzles. With the dampening field shut down, it's time to head back to Voyager and triumphantly return to the Alpha Quadrant. On the transport back to the VGR, surprise! Anti-leptons, the science is broken. You beam into an arena and face an assimilated Nausicaan. This right here cements that this game is at the very least tied with EF1 as being the best Star Trek game of all time. This boss fight is kick-ass and shows that the devs knew how to make a game. The strongified Nausicaan looks amazing and has some devastating attacks. This is a boss fight that can be easy or hard depending on if you know how to beat him or not. The game does not tell you how to fight him, and it has no massive glowies of doom either. After he is defeated, you return to Voyager secure in the knowledge that you are at least 1/4 as awesome as Kyle Katarn.
This is a hell of a hook mission, and goes a long way towards making the finale of Voyager actually good. Now after the Borg are defeated, you expect the game to get even better, right?
After this epic hook mission, the game just slows down and meanders for a bit. After handing the Borg their robotic asses, it's time to get debriefed. And you have to deal with the typical Starfleet bureaucrat being his typical Starfleet bureaucrat annoying self. And he gives the former Hazard team members their new assignments. And these assignments actually make some sense. Monroe is to be an instructor at Starfleet Academy, and Telsia is going to be the chief of security on the USS Dallas, along with Duke Nukem. These assignments are, of course, seen as bad, due to the fact that they are splitting up the Hazard Marines. But Monroe should want to teach up-and-coming Starfleet security officers tactics that include more than just stand around, fire a phaser once, and die. And Telsia would make a great chief of security due to her knowledge of doing more than just standing around and dying. Chang gets pissed off and threatens to beat the shit out of this smarmy asshole. Yeah, for all the good that will do you, Chang. Come on, use your brain. The former Hazard team leaves the office in a huff, and even Chell voices his displeasure.
Maybe we can get him fired for being a hack.
Holy crap, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like his bullions finally dropped.
Chell really does act more badass in this game, and even sports a permanently disgruntled expression on his face like someone ate all the blueberries or something. With the Hazard team broken up, everyone just kind of wanders away, and the player is free to roam about the grounds of Starfleet Academy, which I think is really awesome, as it allows you to feel like you are actually in the Star Trek universe. You meet up with Tuvok and have a heart-to-heart, and despite the somewhat lackluster VA direction, the moment is still really touching. After meeting up with the Big T, you get your teaching assignment, and before this segment ends, you meet up with Telsia. She was positioned as a love interest in the previous game, and here it's implied that you are with her in a relationship. She is pissed that the Hazard Marines are broken up, and that they should resign in protest. You have 3 dialogue options, each assier than the rest, with one making Monroe out to be some sort of Starbucks-styled space rogue with a girl in every galaxy, or at least every quadrant. For me, Monroe never seemed like that kind of guy, so I feel it would be out of character for him to be so assholey. The only good option is to say that Monroe doesn't want her to give up her career for him. To which Telsia responds,
"You won't throw away your career for me."
And sadly, Monroe has nothing more to say to this. The game literally just cuts to black.
2 years pass, and we cut to Monroe and Korban fighting some Romulan pataks. Korban is voiced by Tony Todd. You know, Worf's brother. He also did some voice work in Star Trek Klingon Academy. He is decent here, but he is let down by bad VA direction and comes off as stilted. You kick the crap out of the Ramis, and near the end of the level, you take up a bat'leth and do what a badass does best. This, of course, was just a holodeck simulation, and after the simulation, Captain Picard, still voiced by Patrick Stewart, rolls up like a boss and straight up recruits you right onto the Big E. And this is where the game slows down considerably. The Big E gets a distress call from the Excelsior-class USS Dallas and goes and investigates. The mission is decent, I suppose, but the enemies are not that hard to fight, and the level just feels kind of dull in places. The new enemy is an exoskeletal alien with a personal impulse drive.
Impulse drive. Seriously. Seriously, ladies and gentlemen. For those who don't know, the impulse drive works by driving the ship to a fraction of C, meaning they should literally be able to move faster than you can bloody well see. And also, it doesn't really work like that in the game. In the game, the personal impulse drive works like a jetpack. If they just called it a goddamn jetpack, I would have been fine. But really, impulse drive? Come on!
And really, when you think about it, they don't even need to go at impulse. Imagine if that bastard hit you at 100 miles an hour, you would be dead! So yeah, the Dallas level should be cool, but there's just not enough gameplay to really get excited. The next level is on a space station, and it also drags a bit, but the gameplay is a bit funner, science term. You do meet up with Ensign Gonzalez, who at the very least has a cool look with a robot eye. The plot here is kinda dumb. You have to protect the higher-ups of the station because screw the little guy. The fight is fun, and you get your ass pulled out of the fire by the Hazard Marines busting in, but then you have to reset the station defense grid. You do that, and the station, for some reason, is safe again. After the space station mission, you are charged by Captain Picard to research the Atrexians, a name so generic that they might have just stuck with Greys or something else uninspired. You go to the ship's library, and it is complete with flat-screen computer monitors. Yeah, this game's 2003 release date is really showing here. You find out that the Genericans have an empire and the Idril are a client species. At first, this just seems like generic background info that matters only to nerds like me, but as you might expect, when you go to a planet that seems to be harboring more exoskeletal aliens, you find some Idril. They're poking around some ruins because they think they're ancient Idril ruins. When you search through the ruins, you find that this is actually a massive factory complex that is producing more exoskeletal aliens. And then you find out that said exoskeletal aliens are...
They're genetically modified beasts of burden.
Question. Why do they look like demonic hellspawn? I can only assume that the ancient Idril had the alien equivalent of Todd McFarlane design the bloody things. Shutting down the factory is now your priority, and this is where the VA and scripting just seem weird. Like it was written and done by someone who was not a native English speaker. Some of the dialogue just comes off as something no one would actually say. Everyone calls the planet with the factory that manufactures the exoskeletal aliens a murder world. Really, who talks like that? I talk weird, and even I don't talk like that. Littered throughout the game are some other weird bits of dialogue that crop up as well, but like with so many things, improve towards the end. The murder world is shut down by Phase Plasma Pulse Rifle to the power conduit. The Idril catch a ride on the Big E, and there's a discussion about where the exoskeletal aliens came from. The Idril say that there's a big conspiracy by the Atrexians to keep the Idril down, and then Picard chimes in with an idiotic comment about the rights of the exoskeletal aliens.
It's just weird. I thought Picard had long since grown out of his psychotic desire to make even the most reprehensible of alien feel right at home. Hell, in the very first TNG novel, he actually contemplates submitting himself for digitization because he thinks that might make the alien feel offended if he doesn't do it.
Eventually, the Big E checks out another planet with an exoskeletal alien factory. When it drops its shields to transport down the Hazard Marines, it gets attacked by 3 Idril ships, and gets the shit absolutely kicked out of it. This seems to happen every time the Big E does anything, though. It allows you, of course, to do what you do best. Killing Xenos. And this is one of the funner, scientific term, levels in the bloody game. Especially if you get pissed off about all the times the Big E gets taken over. Here, that ain't happening. Monroe is personally gonna shoot the bastards blowing holes in his ship. You fight through the Big E and eventually fight in the engine room. This fight is a little tricky because you have to take care not to shoot anything vital. If you do shoot anything vital, you blow up. Also, Howling Mad Murdoch himself shows up. The VA for Barclay here could be better, as he sounds quite, well, let's just say Barclay sounds stoned out of his gourd. You would never believe that the voice actor here, Dwight Schultz, would ever go on to voice Death's Head. Eventually, you're called to fix the warp drive, because Barclay is too busy working on his Uber Solat project, I guess. It's a typical pipe puzzle, but if you mess up, this happens.
We have to eject the core. Monroe, the access code to eject the core is 9459112.
Oh shit, I just shoot people, I don't know how to fix the warp drive. Eeny, meeny, miny? Mo.
Oops.
Although in the game, I didn't find any bloody button to push and just died. And when I reloaded the save, I was able to solve the puzzle. So yeah, how you actually eject the core, I have no idea. The Big E ain't secure yet. You next have to go out onto the hull of the Big E and scrape off some bugs. The space mission is epic, although the foul Xenos scum can get annoying as some of their attacks will blow you off course. And of course, this is a timed mission. Once the bugs are scraped off the hull, it's time to man the turbo phasers and take out the enemy flagship. Of all the turret segments I've played, this one was one of the most satisfying. With the Idril smashed, it's time to kick some more alien ass. The Idril are attacking a Generican colony, and you have to stop them. This level is better than some previous ones, but still drags a little. After saving the colony, it's off to yet another planet in search of the leader of the Idril. This level has some great combat, But, and this is a big flabby one, you have what I like to call a knockout plot, or a plot knockout. You have a big badass like Monroe. He is literally killing whole armies of Xenos, and then 3 little cretins show up, and you surrender. Really now? Lazy is the word that comes to mind. As you would expect, Lord Baron von Evilstein here gloats about how great he is and how he's going to kill you and your whole team. But oh shit! Looks like he has a family member in the line of fire. Oh dear, it looks like his father is on a planet that is being attacked by some exomorphs. He tries to shut them down, but to no avail, and his father gets carved into chili meat. Looks like his pointy beard couldn't save him. And this causes Baron von Evilstein here to, well, stop being a villain for some reason. Apparently his father dying was all it took for him to see the error of his ways and become Perry the Paragon. This is where I thought the game would end, and if it had ended here, this review would have been very different. Instead, you blow up the Exo Factory, and Perry the Paragon escapes with you instead of dying in a suitably dramatic fashion. And you find out that Perry the Paragon was not controlling the Exo drones after all.
My interest is piqued, Ritual Entertainment. What else you got?
This game does not feel like a TNG movie. Rather, it feels like a little TNG miniseries. It starts out strong. Episode 2 and 3 were kind of crap, but passable. Now they hired a writer, hired a director, and we're getting this space wagon to the future on the trail to glory. You question Perry the Paragon, and it turns out he doesn't even know where the main control center for the Exo Aliens is. Some leader. And so, you have to find a guy who does. Omag the Ferengi. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is the game. That first bit was just setup. Now, the real fun starts. You travel to Klingon Starbase K7. I'm going to say Squee. What do we got? Squee. On K7, you find where the good part of the game was hiding all along. At this point, every aspect of the game gets better, including the little side conversations.
This big lizard man comes into my store. I say, what can I do for you? And all he does is hiss.
Hiss?
Well, sort of an articulated hissing like, this is
Weird.
Eventually, you find a bar and learn that Omag is in the VIP room having 3 strippers give him Umox, among other things. But before you can get into the VIP lounge for space strippers and space coke, you must first prove yourself. You have to fight the Nausicaan bouncer in a Hell in the Cell match. After shoving a batleth up Bonesaw's ass, it's time to talk with Omag. You get into a verbal sparring match and quote the rules of acquisition back and forth. Let me tell you, this is where my plasma chamber was on full alert. Omag, like the little shit that he is, runs off and has the Klingons on the station attack you. This goes about as well as you would expect. The boss fight here is nothing short of excellent. Omag gets an old-ass Klingon voiced by none other than J.G. Hetzler.
You might remember him from such remarkable roles as General Martok, that random Vulcan in the first episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and of course, who can forget, the Warden in Reanimator 3.
The boss fight is suitably tough, and not Martok even takes you on with his plasma chain gun, and he can kill you in just a few hits with it. Also, goal! Oh wait, he teleported after he died. And, like a boss, Monroe picks up the fallen Klingon's plasma chain gun and adds it to his weaponry collection.
With the honorless Pataks killed, it's finally time to fight some even more honorless Pataks. And that, of course, is the Romulans.
See what I mean when I said this game gets better? You now have to go undercover and sneak into a Romulan base. Cool puzzles, awesome firefights, and a really cool boss fight against a Romulan double agent with a personal cloaking field. And it is here that the game gets even better. After killing the double agent, some more Romulans show up and start gloating. The Romulan Commander is voiced by Jeffrey Combs. And he is not affected with bad VA disease either. He gloats a bit, and one of his underlings is like, sir, why are we telling the enemy our entire plan? And then Jeff is like, oh yeah, right. Before Jeff Yulin can kill you, Ensign Gonzalez saves the day, but gets killed saving Monroe in a scene straight out of Star Trek VI. Now it's time for End Game.
And what better place for the game to end than on a lava planet? It's time to shove a grenade up Bowser's ass and blow him up.
On the lava planet, you fight through Romulans, exo-aliens, and finally come face to face with Jeffulin. He was the one secretly controlling the exo-aliens all along. He was going to use them in a bid to take over the entire Romulan star empire and thus conquer the universe! Or at the very least, the Beta Quadrant. He, of course, gets in a couple good gloats, and then hops into the control room and starts shooting at you. And then, he, of course, sends his army of biomechanical spiders to menace you. Good plan, Jeff. Why did you leave all these, health stations and power rechargers scattered about the arena? Probably should have had that underling of yours design it. The fight is fun, but then, after you kill the Jeffulin, Satan shows up.
Beasts of Burden, that is goddamn Satan. And what if it wasn't a Beast of Burden? Would it be goddamn Cthulhu or something if it was supposed to be a war machine?
You're a machine, and machines can be broken. Oh yeah, and Monroe trash talks him in the fight as well. With Satan defeated, Lieutenant Monroe returns to the Enterprise for some well-needed R&R with Ensign Telsia. The kiss here looks okay, but the Intech 3 engine was just barely up to the job. And the game ends with the Enterprise going to warp to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And so that is Star Trek Elite Force 2. It's a masterpiece, any which way you look at it. The only thing that EF1 has on it is the voice acting. That's it. EF2 has a better plot, better action, and even better characters despite the lackluster VA work. And is an overall better experience. Elite Force 2 is to Jedi Academy, as EF1 is to Jedi Knight 2. Sadly, this game would not do as good as EF1 and would pretty much be forgotten by the gaming community at large. But the fans remembered, oh yes, they indeed remembered the amazing experience of EF2, and there were numerous mods created for the game, including a co-op mod. EF2 also brought heart back to TNG. The TNG movies felt stilted and lacked the emotion of the TV series. The Big E lacked the warmth of the Big D, and that's mainly because we had 7 seasons to see the Big D, but only 3 movies for the Big E. With this game, we got to see more of the Big E, and got to really live in it. Most post-Nemesis content got really dark. Star Trek these days has become Diet Star Wars, but EF2 was really able to capture the spirit and feel of Star Trek, and is one of the best endings to the 24th century saga.
As you would expect, this game cannot be found on GOG or Steam because of licensing issues. But you can find it on certain, shall we say, isolated zones if you look hard enough. And so, I am GeneralLotz, wishing you good Klingon Honor Guard and good Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Fallen, or whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed my review of Star Trek Elite Force 2, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you these awesome PC game reviews.